Most women fear the silence, but some welcome it like a long-lost lover. They walk alone through the rooms of their homes, not as symbols of loneliness, but as emblems of completion. The world may call them solitary, but in truth, they are sovereign. These are not women waiting. They are not the pause between lovers, not the shadow of a man's absence. They are the full presence of themselves. Carl Jung believed that the soul of a woman is not born in noise nor found in the approval of the masculine eye. Her soul is unearthed in the stillness when a one is watching, and that is where the woman who lives alone begins to burn. She has not simply chosen to live without a man. She has chosen to no longer outsource her wholeness. For most of the world, a woman is defined by her attachments: wife, girlfriend, mother, muse. But this woman has turned away from the archetype of the nurturer and the pleaser. She has met the shadow of abandonment, stared it down, and whispered, "You are not my end." To the outside, she may seem bitter, hardened, even suspicious. But only those who have never tasted true freedom would confuse boundaries for bitterness. She has stepped into the house of herself and locked the door behind her, not in retreat, but in reclamation. This woman has become intimate with solitude, not the empty kind, but the kind that awakens the feminine unconscious, the depth that Jung described as the realm of symbols, dreams, and archetypes. In this solitude, she meets Herma, the sacred inner feminine that exists beneath the performance. Gone is the mask. Gone is the conditioned smile. In its place is silence, mystery, power. You may wonder, why does she choose to live alone? What is she running from? But perhaps you're asking the wrong question. Perhaps the truth is she's not running at all. She is returning. Returning to the place where she doesn't need to be understood, fixed, chased, or saved. Men often project onto such a woman. Jung called it thema projection, the way a man unconsciously sees his own soul in the body of a woman. And when she does not reflect back what he needs, he grows confused, threatened, because she is not there to validate him. She is not interested in becoming the stage upon which his ego plays. This woman's silence is not passive. It is active resistance. It is the kind of silence that makes a man hear his own thoughts echo. She is not rejecting him. She simply isn't performing anymore. The men who once pursued her with promises now find themselves unnerved by her stillness. She doesn't ask when he's coming home. She doesn't post pictures of longing. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She observes. She detaches. She lets go. Not with anger, but with clarity. If he left, she didn't fall apart. If he cheated, she didn't compete. If he gaslit, she didn't play the victim. She simply rose in silence and removed herself from the theater of illusion. She no longer exists in the orbit of dysfunction. She learned that healing is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly in the unmade bed, the morning tea ritual, the mirror. She passes without criticism. She builds a sanctuary not of walls and doors, but of decisions. You watching may feel the stir in your chest. That akathat says, "I want to become her." But you hesitate because society has trained you to believe that worth is proven through relational value. That unless Amen wants you, you do not exist. That unless someone misses you, your silence has no meaning. But here's the truth. The woman who lives alone has shattered that lie. She is not waiting to be picked. She is not measuring her femininity by the number of texts she receives. She is no longer addicted to the emotional crumbs of men who fear her depth. She has faced the archetype of the abandoned woman, the one who begs, pleads, clings, and she buried her. She chose individuation over dependency. She chose discomfort over codependence. She chose truth over validation. Carl Jung taught that we must integrate our shadows to become whole. This woman, this rare, radiant, dangerous woman, has done just that. She has met the parts of herself that longed to be saved and instead became the savior. She no longer demands a man to complete her story. She's the story. Her presence disturbs those who are still addicted to performance, to the illusion of love, to the mask of romanticism. Because she does not flirt with emptiness. She fills herself, and in that fullness she becomes untouchable. She walks through life with the quiet power of someone who no longer needs permission to exist. Her mornings are different now, not dictated by texts that never came or the subtle ache of being ignored. They begin in silence, but it is not the hollow silence of longing. It is the fertile stillness of rebirth. The woman who lives alone has mastered the art of becoming her own rhythm. She wakes not to serve, not to shrink, not to be chosen, but to be. In this sacred solitude, her femininity is no longer transactional. It is not exchanged for attention, protection, or praise. It is simply expressed through how she moves, how she speaks to herself, how she creates a life that mirrors her internal worth. Jung would say, she has entered the process of individuation, the path where the fragmented parts of the self return home. She is not chasing perfection. She's integrating contradiction. The lover and the warrior, the nurturer and the wild one, the ache and the peace. And that is precisely what makes her so disarming to the masculine. For many men, a woman like this is incomprehensible. They cannot place her into a role. She is not the wounded one who needs fixing. She is not the girl who melts under their gaze. She is not the surrogate mother for their unresolved childhood wounds. She is simply herself. And that is terrifying because when a man has not done his own shadow work, he will try to dominate what he cannot understand. He will either retreat into silence or attempt to provoke her reaction. He will test her, ghost her, tempt her, triangulate her to see if she still bleeds. But she no longer bleeds for him. She bleeds for the moon, for the truth, for herself. He may return weeks or months later, seeking what he once rejected. But by then, she has become untouchable, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. She does not hold grudges. She simply doesn't regress. That version of her, the one who once would have waited, no longer exists. Do you understand now? This isn't about rejecting men. It's about transcending the need for them to define her. She may still desire love. She may still ache, still fantasize, still hope, but she does not need. And that difference, that one sacred difference, liberates her. Because when you no longer need a man to validate your existence, you begin to attract not boys in men's bodies, but souls who have met their own depth. And let us be honest, very few men have done this work. Most are still chasing the maiden, the muse, the mother, women who will reflect back the ego's image. But this woman, this solitary, self-possessed force, will not play along. She reflects not the man's fantasy, but his shadow. When he looks at her, he is forced to confront his own emptiness. Her silence speaks louder than praise. Her absence is felt more than another woman's obsession. She doesn't just walk away, she dissolves from his reality like a ghost that no longer haunts. And in that vanishing, he realizes she was never chasing love. She was love, some may ask, but isn't she lonely? Lonely? No. She has known loneliness. Intimately, she has sat with it at the table, looked it in the eye, and refused to run. And because of that, it no longer controls her. What the world calls loneliness, she calls sovereignty. She does not fill the silence with scrolling or sex or desperate texting. She does not confuse dopamine for devotion. Instead, she waits not for a man, but for alignment. If someone is to enter her life, they must bring more peace, not chaos. More depth, not distraction. This is not arrogance. This is discernment. The woman who lives alone has chosen the long road, the quiet path. The one less praised but more powerful. She is not selling herself in the marketplace of romance. She is building an altar within, and only those who speak the language of the soul will ever find it. You may feel intimidated by her or drawn, maybe both, because deep down you sense what she has done. She has broken the contract. Thune-spoken deal women have made for centuries. Be less so that he stays. Be agreeable so he doesn't leave. Be beautiful so you're not alone. She tore that contract apart, burned it in the fire of self-respect, and now she writes her own terms. Carl Jung warned us, whatever we deny in ourselves, we project onto others. The woman who lives alone has stopped projecting. she has reclaimed. She no longer demands that men make her feel safe. She is safe. She no longer begs to be seen. She sees herself. And in that moment, when she realizes she doesn't need saving, she becomes the very thing the world told her was too dangerous to be free. There's something holy about a woman who lives without the noise of male permission. She moves not in rebellion, but in revelation. She has realized that the feminine is not weak, passive, or pleasing. It is wild, it is rooted, it is terrifying in its beauty, and most of all, it is complete. Carl Jung spoke of the union of opposites, the merging of light and shadow, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. The woman who lives alone has become that alchemical vessel. She is not waiting for a man to complete her polarity. She's become both the flame and the vessel that holds it. You might think she's hardened, that she's given up, but in truth, she has simply given in to herself. She no longer plays the feminine in the script written by the wounded masculine. She no longer confuses validation with value, attention with affection, presence with protection. She understands now that true union begins within. When a woman finally sits in silence with her soul, she begins to remember, not in the way memories return, but in the way bones remember who they are beneath the skin. She remay. Desperate tides of her eye enough. She has faced the abyss of rejection and found herself unshaken. She has faced the silence and found it sacred. That is why men cannot forget her. Even those who walked away, they remember not what she said, but what she withheld, not what she gave, but what she embodied. The echo of her presence lingers, not because she begged, but because she became. A man may try to replace her, to seek out the loud ones, the soft ones, the ones who bend. But when night falls and the mast slips, it is her stillness that haunts him. The way she walked away without venom. The way she didn't try to prove her worth. The way she didn't collapse because she never needed him to stay, only to see. But seeing a woman like this requires a depth most never reach. It requires a man to meet his own inner feminine and bow before it. It requires him to release control, abandon ego, and dissolve the illusion that love is conquest. Most cannot. They are still boys, dressed as warriors, still clinging to the mother wound, still needing a woman to regulate their self-worth. And so they label her as too much, too intense, too distant, too mysterious. But in truth, she is simply untamed. She does not perform femininity to Sue Ammon's insecurity. She does not dim her intensity to fit into small lives. She's not a supporting role. She is the central flame. And when a woman becomes her own fire, she stops looking for warmth in other people's approval. She may enjoy a man's presence. She may even fall in love, but she will never again fall beneath herself. She has tasted self-belonging. And once you know that flavor, no breadcrumb will do. There is a sorrow to this kind of awakening, a grief for the girl she used to be. Theon, who used to wait by the phone. Theon, who apologized for taking up space. The one who thought love was earned through endurance. That girl is gone. In her place stands a woman who chooses solitude over chaos, depth over drama, truth over comfort. She no longer seeks relationships to feel alive. She's alive. She no longer asks, "Why didn't he love me?" She asks, "Why did I abandon myself for so long?" Her questions have changed, because her consciousness has risen. Carl Jung taught that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fate. The woman who lives alone is no longer ruled by fate. She is ruled by awareness, by intention, by soul. And from this place she doesn't chase, manipulate, or control. She allows, she invites, she observes. Her life is no empty, it is spacious. Not lonely, but deeply sacred. She knows now the one who stays is not the one who fills the void. The one who stays is the one who does not create the void. And until that presence arrives, she remains in her own. There is a profound beauty in her restraint. Not the restraint that comes from fear or obedience, but the kind born from clarity. The kind that whispers, "I know what I bring, and I know what I no longer accept." This woman, living alone, no longer reacts. She responds. She doesn't rush to correct misunderstandings or beg to be seen rightly. She has learned that silence is a more powerful mirror than explanation, and in that mirror, others are confronted with themselves. She has become a psychological invitation, an open door, but not to just anyone. She doesn't chase people down alleyways of half-hearted attention. She doesn't barter her softness for temporary belonging. She sits back knowing that anything forced is already lost. To the unaware, she may appear cold, unreachable, but that is only because she no longer performs emotional labor for the uninitiated. She no longer bleeds to prove she has a heart. She has learned the sacred art of protecting her energy, not from paranoia, but from wisdom. Not because she hates people, but because she finally loves herself. Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." This woman knows that loneliness is not cured by company. It is cured by communion, with the soul, with truth, with alignment. She has stopped trying to translate her depth for those who only speak surface. She no longer tries to explain her silence to those addicted to noise. And in this space, she finds peace, a peace that cannot be disturbed by ghosted messages or unmet expectations. A peace that doesn't depend on how many people check in on her. A peace that knows her presence is enough, whether witnessed or not. This is the kind of woman who walks through the world like a spell. Not because she's trying to seduce, but because she no longer hides. Her presence stirs something in others, especially in men who've only known women who collapse in order to be kept. She does not collapse. She expands. She deepens. She transcends. And that, more than beauty or charm, is what makes her unforgettable. Men often don't understand why they think about her long after she's gone. It's because she never gave them a performance. She gave them presence. Not the curated kind, the raw, unfiltered, unapologetic kind. And once you've tasted that, everything else feels hollow. But make no mistake, she didn't always live like this. Once she too cried in the shower. Once she too waited for love in empty beds. Once she too mistook drama for passion, chaos for intensity. But the pain cracked her open. And through that crack she saw herself. Not the self they told her Toby, but the self she was before she learned to shrink. That version of her, the awakened one, cannot be unseen. And now every decision she makes flows from that vision. She doesn't fear being alone. She fears abandoning herself again. And so she builds a life that honors her essence. Each book on her shelf, each plant in her kitchen, each candle she lights, all of it is devotion. Not to a man, but to her own becoming. She has created a life where peace is the default, not the reward, where her body is not a currency to be spent for affection, where her intuition is not silenced for someone else's comfort. This isn't bitterness, it's bounded grace. She may smile softly at you, invite you in, but understand this. If you do not bring peace, you will not be allowed to stay because she no longer fears losing people. She fears losing herself in people, and so her home becomes a sanctuary, not of isolation but of intentionality. She dances in the kitchen, not to be watched, but because the music moves through her. She dresses for the mood of her soul, not the malagaze. She is no longer a product of someone else's desire. She is the manifestation of her own. And the woman who lives like this doesn't attract attention. She attracts reverence. Some nights the world tries to pull her back. The old voices rise. The ones that once told her a woman alone is a woman unloved. That silence means failure. That independence is just loneliness dressed in pride. But she no longer listens, because now she knows there is a kind of loneliness that liberates and a kind of company that cages. She has tasted both. She has slept beside warm bodies that made her feel cold. She has lolled at dinners where her soul stayed silent. She has played the good girl, the accommodating one, the emotional caretaker, and it cost her everything. Now she lives differently. She has replaced expectation with intention. She no longer begs the world to see her. She sees herself. She no longer molds herself to be chosen. She chooses every day with every breath. You see, the woman who lives alone has made peace with death. Not physical death, but the death of illusion. She let the false self die. The people-pleaser, the emotional martyr, the woman who made herself small so others wouldn't feel inadequate. And in that death, something extraordinary was born. A woman who walks with the quiet thunder of integrity. A woman whose boundaries are not walls but gates open only to those who approach with truth. A woman who would rather eat dinner alone than make conversation with someone who cannot meet her soul. She is not cold. She is crystalline. You cannot manipulate her with distance. She is distance refined. You cannot punish her with silence. She's silence mastered. You cannot seduce her with words. She has learned that love without action is just performance. Carl Jung said that what you resist not only persists but grows stronger. She has stopped resisting her own power. She no longer hides her brilliance to soothe Amon's ego. She no longer waters herself down to make love easier to swallow. She no longer explains her intuition to those who dismiss it. Her solitude has become her sanctuary, not her sentence. It is here in the quiet that she builds an empire not of stone, but of self. Each moment of peace, each breath of stillness, each act of presence becomes a brick. And one day someone may find her, not because she was lost, but because she was whole. They will not complete her. They will complement her, not by saving her, but by meeting her, because when you live this way, you stop seeking fireworks. You begin to crave resonance. You stop asking, do they love me? You start asking, does this feel true? And in this truth, she finds everything she once searched for in others. Security, intimacy, reverence, belonging. Not given, not begged for, claimed. She walks through the world now with less fear because her survival no longer depends on being desired. She is no longer a servant to the male gaze, nor a puppet to societal roles. She is not here to be consumed. She is here to be witnessed. Some women chase power. This woman embodies it. And if you dare to know her, truly know her, you must bring more than charm. You must bring depth. You must bring healing. You must have met your own darkness and survived it. Because she has no time for those still playing at love. She seeks only those who can hold the weight of truth. So if you're watching her from afar, wondering what she feels, know this. She feels everything deeply, intensely, but she does not act from impulse. She acts from wisdom, and wisdom has taught her this. Not all love is sacred. Not all touch is nourishing. Not all presence is worth keeping. She is no longer afraid of being.